Okay, continuing on, struggling through these reading practice videos. So this month is The Rest Will Come, so tonight I'm going to read The Rest Will Come. This book is about Emma, who gets very frustrated online dating and finally snaps and starts murdering people. So instead of setting up her dating profile to lure prospective soulmates, she ends up using it to lure victims. And initially, the first one's an accident, and then she begins to evolve as a killer and refine her techniques. So instead of disposing of the body in the mountains, eventually she starts bringing the victim to the mountains. So my favorite scenes in this book are not necessarily the murders, they're more the exchange between Emma and her best friend Ronnie, and that might be because Ronnie's actually me, because my narcissistic streak is well documented, but my range as a reader definitely falls short of voices, and I don't want to subject you to listening to me read a long scene of dialogue, so I'm not going to read one of those scenes. Buy the book, enjoy those scenes, hear Ronnie in my voice, but instead I will read when Emma has lured one of her prospective date/victims into the mountains and things kind of go off the rails. She moved around the car and fetched the hefty rock she had planted against the tree trunk. She had selected it after pre-digging the burial hole. It fit her hand comfortably, wielding a decent weight, and had a sharp enough edge to do the damage she needed. When she first saw it, she thought it looked like a bludgeoning rock. Her palm cradled the rock. She moved up behind Carl, who was staring into the fire. She let her hand crawl up his shoulder and slide along his cheek. He dropped his head back and looked up at her with lazy lust in his eyes. She brought the rock crashing down into his forehead. Carl's body jolted at the impact, arms and legs shooting out for an instant, then flopping back down. His shoes scrabbled against the gravel. His hands groped at the arms of the camping chair. He let out the same wet grunt as all the men before him. Penny could hear the familiar confusion and anger in the primal noise. She stepped back to watch his body flounder in the pain. Carl tumbled forward into the dirt. He landed flat on his stomach, droplets of blood spilling from his forehead. He struggled to prop himself on his knees, then collapsed to the ground again. Penny ambled slowly around the camping chairs towards him. When she stood over him, she pressed her foot into his shoulder and forced him to his back. She wanted to look down at his face when she finished bashing it in. A burst of breath exploded from Carl's mouth as she rolled him over. His eyes roved unfocused behind her, his face already partially obscured by the blood pouring out from his wound. Penny placed a foot on either side of his waist and stood straddling him, firming her grip on the now bloody rock. Once more she inhaled the crisp mountain night air to savor every step of her process. She even allowed her eyelids to drop for a fraction of a heartbeat. Carl popped up from the dirt and wrapped his hands hard around her thigh. Penny's eyes snapped back open as he pitched her over off of him. Penny felt the heat of the fire as she careened towards the dirt. Her back landed against the stones lining the fire pit, and she scrambled desperately to get out of the reach of the burning heat. It took her a moment to reconcile the sensations of the fall. She clawed at the dirt until her fingertips found her rock. Then she sprang up and whirled around for Carl. There was only his small puddle of blood. Carl was gone. Emma's heart stopped in her chest. The pretense of Penny abandoned her in the panic that raced over her skin. Shit, where is he? Emma attempted to calm the fever flushing over her skin and listen for him. She only heard the wretched banging of her pulse in her ears and her ragged breathing. Her nerves felt like they were going to burst. She was done. She was caught. She was going to go to prison and be executed. Before she could think, Emma was running. She took large leaps over the dark ground. Even if it was in the wrong direction, she had to do something. She had to find him. He could not have gotten too far with a squirting head injury. Her pulse slamming through her veins, Emma tried to strangle her breath. The panicked heaving deafened her. Calm down. Just calm down. You can find him. Emma spilled out between the trees, moonlight pouring down on the dirt and wayward blades of the sparse plants. She froze in the silver light and closed her eyes. Then, on the edge of her hearing, between her gulps of night air, Emma heard the rustle. She sprinted toward the sound before she saw him, all of her wayward emotions channeling into a singular focus. I can still kill him. I have to still kill him. Emma's pupils expanded away from the harsh flames of the fire. Her eyes dilated the moonlight and spread it thin over the landscape in front of her. She spotted Carl moving up the hill and attempting to circle back around the cars and get back to the road that brought them there. Back when he thought some girl from the internet brought him to the mountains to roll around in a tent. Once she spotted him, the rest of the world fell away. She leaned back into her heels and launched forward on runner's legs. She felt every stride, every run, every race she had ever done culminating in this moment. The trees whipped past her, her footfalls crunching on the fallen pine needles. Carl did not see her coming. He was lost in his own injury and the throbbing fear in his escape. He ran sloppily and slow, cradling his swelling wound with one hand. Emma sprinted toward him without thought, pumping her arms desperately across her body. She reached him as he rounded the crest of the hill and turned against the drop of the other side. Emma dropped her rock at her feet and grabbed both his shoulders with her hands. Carl managed to wield his head around and give her a look of unadulterated shock as she shoved him hard away from his balance. He followed his shoulders to the ground, toppling hard into the scrubby grass. His arms and legs spiraled out against his fall as he rolled down the hill. His body came down on top of his neck, and a heavy, wet crack echoed through the night. So, that is Emma almost losing a victim in the woods. If you want to find out what happens to him, you're going to have to read the book, but I think you can guess. Not the smoothest reading, but we're working on it, so feel free to follow the links to find the rest will come on Amazon, and drop me a message of encouragement to keep doing these things, please. Thank you.